Hello, hello. Welcome to the place for offbeat health professionals who have bravely swapped their healthcare hats for non-clinical creative caps. I'm Caitlin, a psychologist turned copywriter, and this is Healers with Hustles. Hello, hello. Welcome to the very first episode of Healers with Hustles. I'm super excited to have you here. Now, you might be wondering what the purpose of this podcast is. Well, my wish for this podcast is to inspire other health professionals who also have a secret desire to start a non-clinical creative business. My other not-so-secret wish is to show that it's okay for health professionals to pursue careers and work that differ from the usual expectations of their profession. This is 2024. But how will I achieve this? Good question. So the podcast will feature real stories with real health professionals doing real cool creative stuff on the side of their traditional jobs, or even people who have left the healthcare world entirely to pursue their creative work full-time. I really hope to show what's possible. But in saying that, I might even bring in a few experts who aren't health professionals, who can help us bridge knowledge gaps. Well, my knowledge gaps at least. Why am I doing this? Well, as a psychologist who crept out and started a writing business, I've experienced the paralyzing fear and oh my gosh, what the heck have I done self-doubt that comes from stepping away from clinical work. And as there's no clear model for making such a transition. Well, none that was covered in my 7 years of uni anyways. But not only that, at the time, I wasn't sure if I was quote unquote allowed to start a creative business. It sounds so silly, but literally, I feared the therapy police were going to show up on my doorstep to take me away. But you know what? The moment I discovered there were so many of us out there, so many health professionals who ventured into creative spaces, whether they're doing clinical work alongside non-clinical creative work, who've embraced their creative work full-time, I felt a huge sigh of relief. And to be honest, it was a sigh of relief I wish I'd felt at the beginning when I've wondered if this path was even possible. So as a result, this podcast and the group is essentially a massive permission slip if you're considering a similar journey. But let's rewind a wee bit because I didn't tell you my story. So when I started my solo psychology private practice, I needed a website. Now, I didn't realize that web developers don't do the writing part, which I found out is called copywriter. Anywho, so I had the task of writing the website content, and in the process, I discovered it's actually a job. People get paid to write website content. What a dream. And I've always had this secret wish to be a writer. So many secret wishes. And at the time, I was working in palliative care and in aged care as a psych. And one of my patients would frequently say to me, "I won't die wondering." And so when the idea of starting a copywriting business popped into my head, of course, my first reaction was, who am I to do this? But my second thought was, well, I don't want to die wondering, what if I'd become a writer? So I started a writing business, which meant I started 2 businesses in the space of like 4 months, which probably wasn't the most sensible idea. But coming back to the here and now in the podcast, let's talk a wee bit about the format of the show. So in the era of everyone's new favorite friend, ChatGPT, we don't need more information and generic tips and tricks and how-tos or listicles. What I think the world needs are more stories and genuine conversations. So my idea for the podcast is to have informal conversations, water cooler type conversations, only way, way deeper with other health professionals who are doing this creative, non-clinical work stuff. And yes, I can hear you saying, Caitlin, but what about ethics and codes? Yes, health professionals are, professionals. And that means there are so many rules, codes, and regulations. But that doesn't mean we can't be human. It doesn't mean we have to be some robot with the weight of our profession resting on our shoulders. And because of the rules and codes, it makes sense to a degree where the fear and doubt about stepping out of the image of what a health professional does comes from. But to be honest, a lot of it is fear, and the fear and doubt is mindset and deeper beliefs, even unconscious ones. And that's where my psychology background comes into play. because sometimes these unexamined beliefs hide possibilities. And you know what? I feel so sad thinking about all those missed possibilities or missed opportunities or missed joy and fulfillment that comes from creative work that your whole soul loves. Because it is possible. It's so possible for you to have a joyful career where you're doing creative work as well as healthcare work. Or maybe it's time to take that creative passion full time. Whatever your path or your sitch, I'm here to support and inspire you every step of the way. And I really want to say thank you so much for joining me on this podcast journey. If you have a secret desire, just like I did, to start a non-clinical creative business, stay tuned for more episodes. Okay, take care. All right, that's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Healers with Hustles. If you've enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a tiny favor and subscribe to the show? Just tap the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform and you'll be the first to know as soon as a new episode drops. Thanks so much for listening. Okay, ta-ta for now.